Hello, everybody, all you beautiful people. We will be get started in a minute. We have a big show for you today. Not as well organized as it probably should be, but that doesn't matter. That's never stopped me before, and it won't stop me now. So we got teenage girl, high school drama. We have the EU, the other another one of the cinematic universes is thinking about merging with the UCU, and um, we're going to have both of them working together. Uh, there's going to be a $50 billion investment, and it's going to be big, guys. It's really going to work out. We have the war that may or may not be happening with Iran. Nobody really knows. And lots of other crazy shit. So let's start out with the Lloyd Austin stuff. Okay, so Lloyd Austin, the U.S. Defense Secretary, this was a story for a month or two back. So what he wound up doing was he went in for like cancer surgery, and he didn't tell any. Let me find it because it's such a bizarre story. It's okay. Uh, so Lloyd Austin went in for cancer surgery, and disappeared for 8 days. Nobody knew where he was. The president didn't know. His deputy didn't know. He went in to get a. He claimed it was an elective procedure, but yeah. So okay, let me just take a step back and just try to summarize this. So, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin went in for what he claims was an elective procedure. I think it was to do with colon cancer or something on New Year's Day. And then he disappeared for the next 8 days. Nobody knew where he was. Biden didn't know where he was. His own deputy didn't know where he was. It was just a complete and total black hole. And then he just showed up again, and it's like it's okay, guys. I'm fine now, and it's just going. Um, okay, so that happened, and that was very interesting. So he's back now. We have a bunch of like weird stuff going on. So the U.S. and Iran have been kind of firing back and forth at each other for a while through their various proxies, or rather, the U.S. has been firing in effectuate Iranian proxies, and Iranian proxies have been firing back at the U.S. Uh, so um, a week or so ago, I'm just trying to find it. Yeah, okay. So there was an attack by allegedly an Iranian backed group that hit a base that might have been in Jordan, might have been in Syria. I've seen people argue both ways. And it killed three U.S. troops. And the Biden administration had previously said that this was a red line, and that. Um, oh, wait, what is this? Is this just literally happening as I'm doing this? Oh, okay. Wow, literally, like, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I wasn't prepared for this. I didn't. I had gotten my stuff together, but I guess now it's just going. So initially, what wound up happening was that base got attacked. Three American servicemen were killed. That was seen as being a red line. That if America did this, we'll get to the schoolgirls in a minute. It would invite massive retaliation, and they announced this, and then they didn't do it, and then like there was a couple more delays, and now it appears that they've gone ahead and they've done massive retaliation and hit more than 85 targets in Iraq and Syria. I don't think they attacked Iran. Now, from my understanding, what from my understanding of what would happen is in the meantime, and this is a rumor, we have no idea if this is real or not. I was going to get a video clip, but I got distracted. Um, they went to the Iranians. They're like, look, we have to fire back at you to save face. Could we just blow a couple of your bases up? Like maybe just a couple of them. We'll let you know ahead of time. You can clear out of the base. We just need to blow it up. We need to make it look like we're doing something. And the Iranians told them to fuck off. And then that led to a delay. Now, the thing I don't get is what is it with announcing like military operations days in advance? Because America, like announced days ago, we're going to be hitting Iranian targets in Syria and Iraq. We're going to be bombing them. Like, why do you announce that like days in advance? Doesn't that just give them time to like hide things or leave the facilities or put in air defense missiles or just to do something? I mean, maybe that's the intention is they want to avoid casualties and this whole thing is just one massive G slur up. But yeah, it appears that there's just been a lot of stuff has been hit, and we will have to deal with that as it continues. So let us get to our feature story for the evening. Let me just find it. We have the breakup. We have the breakup of Zelensky and Zaluzhny, the power couple, the two men who led the world together, who made the world tremble before them. Um, of course, it's behind a paywall, like everything is behind a paywall, because we live in a society where everything's behind a fucking paywall. Um, Here we go. Maybe this isn't behind a paywall. I still find it funny how the Washington Post motto is "Democracy dies in darkness," and they have like the most aggressive paywall. Okay, so let's try to go over this because this whole thing is like hard to even explain. So the two main figures in Ukraine are Zelensky and Zaluzhny. Now you may say that's kind of weird that they both have Z names, considering that like the symbol of Rashism or Russian fascism is like a Z as well. I don't know. I guess it's just a coincidence or something. So Zelensky is the head of the Ukrainian army, and Zelensky is obviously the president. And there has been an ongoing power struggle between the two of them for it might even be the better part of a year now. Now, the media has been saying repeatedly that like it's crazy that there people talking about a power struggle. There's no power struggle. There's no like you're mentally ill if you think that you're believing Russian disinformation. And so this has been going on since last year. So Zelensky really wanted to do the counteroffensive. Zaluzhny thought it was a really bad idea. And Zaluzhny basically just went AFK for a prolonged period of time. Like there was a rumor that he got hit by a Russian bomb or something, and then he disappeared. And then they released this like really um like they released the this footage of him at a science fair that like turned out to be from a couple years previously, and people thought he was dead, and then it came out that like he was behind the Nord Stream bombing, and then like it just all of that just kind of disappeared, and it wasn't the current thing anymore, and Zelensky was back. So as he's the head of the Ukrainian army, and generally speaking, it's thought that he was chosen for this position despite being relatively young for being the head of an army. I think he's like 50 something. Let me look this up. He's quite young to be a commander in chief. Yeah, 50 years old. That's extremely young. So he was in his 40s when he was made it, and that is because he is a ideological figure. My understanding is he has a statue of Banderas in his office. For those of you who don't know, Banderas, I can't remember his first name. A Banderite is Banderas are the followers of Stefan Bandera, who was a Ukrainian fascist during World War II. who is idealized by a lot of the ultra nationalists in Ukraine. So he apparently has a statue of Bandera in his office. He's kind of in with the whole Banderites. And he was appointed because he was seen as being a political hardliner who wouldn't snake on Ukraine and sell them out to Russia, despite being arguably inexperienced and of dubious competency. So Zaluzhny, probably in part because he's been against a lot of the really gory offensives that have gone nowhere, is very popular with the military. My understanding is the Ukrainian armed forces love the guy, and he's like a father to his men or something like that. Um, yeah, they have yeah. So he's a father to his men. The army, from my understanding, hates Zelensky. Some people have suggested that the reason that they haven't been doing the mobilizations is out of fear that if Zelensky gives more troops to Zelensky, he'll have ability to have a coup. And this has just been kind of going back and forth for about a year now. And every now and again, like Zelensky will say, "I might be Ukraine's Mannerheim," in reference to Karl Mannerheim. I think that was his first name, Karl Mannerheim. The field marshal and supreme commander of Finland during World War. Yes, it was Carl Gustav Mannerheim during World War II, who commanded the Finnish army during the Winter War initially, and then he was made president at the end of World War II, as he was seen as the strongest figure to surrender to the Soviets and to get the best terms. So he's pontificated that maybe he's the Mannerheim of Ukraine. There's been a lot of talks about coups. There is apparently like a massive network of like G-Slur ops that are being run. Apparently, there's like dozens of Telegram channels that are run by like Zaluzhny's guys, and Zaluzhny's guys like try to like say that there's going to be a coup or float ideas or stuff like that. So the kind of wily coyote shit that we've been seeing over the last couple of months. Um, where is it? So Zaluzhny's head aide, um, live grenade and birthday gift kills aide to Ukraine's military chief. So the main aide to Zaluzhny apparently got a hand grenade in a box from somebody, and he took the hand grenade out of the box and it blew up and killed him. And that is the story, and that his son pulled the thing on the grenade. And then that there was like the police apparently found 5 more grenades in the apartment. Why he had a bunch of grenades in his apartment? Why someone gave him a live grenade as a birthday present? Nobody knows. But that was like the kind of wily coyote shit that we've come to expect in the Ukrainian government. Stuff like this happens all the time. The box was a bottle of alcohol with 6 grenades. I don't. Nothing about it makes any kind of sense. This is also the story they fed us about the Wagner plane going down. That they were like throwing a hand grenade around or something. But anyway, so all this shit's been going on, and it's been hinted for weeks now that Zelensky has been trying to get rid of Zelensky. So we'll read through this article, but Zelensky went to Zelensky and he said, "You're fired." And Zelensky said, "No, I declined to be fired," which is kind of a Chad way to do it. It's like that. It's like somebody said, like, "You're arrested," and you said, I've declined to be arrested." So then he wasn't fired. And then Zelensky asked him to stand down. And apparently he said something like, "You can work with whoever you want to work with as long as you're president," or something like that. Now, also, the state of emergency is going to expire, I think, in March. in which time, if the state of emergency expires, Ukraine hasn't had elections due to the state of emergency. Zelensky will be legally required to hold an election unless they can get it extended again, which they probably will. But my point is, there have been people who have saying, well, maybe what we need to do is Zelensky's a dud. Nobody likes him. He's a weirdo. Let's make Zaluzhny. He's more of a Chad. Look at that jawline. They're like, let's look at Zaluzhny. He looks like a Chad. Um, let's put him in charge, and we'll make him the new commander in chief. See, look at that. Look at that jawline. Let me see. How tall is Zaluzhny? I don't see how tall he is. He's probably taller than Zelensky because Zelensky's a manlet. So he just refused to resign, and Zelensky's like, "Fine, I guess you refused to resign." And there's been all this other stuff, like they've announced multiple times that Zelensky's going to publicly fire him, and that he hasn't. And unless something's happened in the last couple of hours, which it very well might have, it's still going. So let me see if there is a. Let's see what this article says. This is from a couple days ago, but I'm sure it'll be fine. Zaluzhny reportedly refused to step down after being asked to do so by Zelensky on Monday. Zelensky has denied claims he moved to dismiss Zaluzhny, as tensions between the two appear to reach their boiling points after months of simmering. Now, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I'm sure if you go back and you look at previous articles in the Independent, they have said in the past that there is no internal conflict, and if you think there's one, it's like Russian disinformation. Even though to literally everybody else, it was pretty clear that there was a disagreement. So on Monday, reports started to emerge in such pro-Russian newspapers, including Ukrainian Pravda, Ukrinform, and the Kiev Independent. Those are all Ukraine national sources, as well as several leading Telegram channels. The army chief was summoned by Zelensky. It was like that scene in I don't know. It was like the scene in a movie. The Financial Times cited four sources familiar with the situation, claiming that the president offered the popular general a new role as a defense advisor, but he refused, whatever that means. Somebody else said that maybe they offered him an ambassador position, maybe like to UK or America or whatever. But Zelensky's like, this is the Game of Thrones. I'm not going to be removed from office. Uh, so the president asked him to resign. He said no. Zelensky has been attacking him. So Zelensky is not like competent, but he's less crazy than Zelensky. So he's been saying it's a stalemate. He's been saying we need conscription, we need to raise more men. We'll get into that. According to Zelensky, Ukraine has an army of 1 million men. I don't know why they need conscription, but that's the current thing. And I think Zelensky wants to switch to the defensive for now, which isn't going to work, but it's better. It's not great, but better. Ukraine defense minister said, no, this is not true. Zelensky has not issued a comment. The embodiment of Ukrainian armed forces that saved this country against an enemy as fearsome as Russia. Zelensky personally has the support of 88% of Ukrainians. I'm sure that that's real. 97% of Ukrainians trust the armed forces under his command. Well, I mean, I would trust the Ukrainian army a lot more than the Zelensky regime. Um, so there, no, it's there's no stalemate. It's going. There was a story a couple weeks back where Zelensky asked Zelensky, like, what is your plan for victory? And Zelensky just told him to fuck off or something like that. So that's where we are. So let's see if there's been any development at the moment. Um. Okay. Now, what's her name? Victoria Newland. As soon as like this thing happened on Monday, Victoria Newland, who I believe was the person who handed out cookies during Euromaidan, flew to Ukraine. She talked to a whole bunch of people. She reiterated the U.S.'s support for Zelensky in this power struggle. And now it appears today, this is as of like an hour or two ago, White House officials did not support or object to the planned ouster of General Zelensky, saying it's President Zelensky's sovereign choice. People with the matter said. Um, it's under anonymity. It's always under anonymity. Anonymity. Whatever. Zelensky has yet to issue a formal decree announcing the ouster of Zelensky. It is uncertain when that might happen. The advance in notice to Washington, which has not previously been reported, reflects the influential role of the United States as Ukraine's powerful military and political backer. Well, okay, so let's just take a step back. So, what kind of country you are if you go to the head of the army and you're like, "I want you to resign," and the guy just says, "No, I'm not going to resign," and then you just have to like take that like a bitch. So that is number one. Like, is that a coup at this point? Is it just like that the society doesn't function? And I mean, even if he does wind up firing him in the end, this whole thing is deeply embarrassing. Am I planning to watch Mr. Mediker's live stream later? Probably not. Um, Probably, I don't know, do something else this evening. Um, so yeah. So the perception of the division is not helpful. A president has the right to choose his cabinet as he sees fit. I'm sure they didn't say that about Trump. Decisions should be squarely with Zelensky. Okay, president of the the European Center for Policy Analyst. Zelensky has been trying to get them to mobilize 500,000 new soldiers. Now, they can't do that for a number of reasons. For one thing, the Ukrainian public is tired of conscription. I don't really get like what it is the Ukrainian public thinks that like Ukraine's supposed to do. Um, like if they aren't going to bring in conscription and enforce more men into uniform, like what is it that they're going to? How are they going to keep fighting the war? Like I don't really get it. It seems to me like there's no actual alternative to it. Now I was also doing an interest, so I was looking into it. So all the information that I've seen is that you know how Russia did a mobilization. I think it was almost 2 years ago now. Was it? I think it was a year and a half ago or something, and those troops are finally starting to see the front. So, one of the reasons why it's taking Russia a while is the soldiers that it either mobilize, yeah, September 2022, that it either mobilizes or who join go through full regular training, which in Russia, to my understanding, is somewhere between 6 months to a year. Now I looked it up, and about 6 months seems standard amount of training in most modern armies. And if someone knows more about this below, they can tell me. My understanding is the U.S. Army to be a competent infantryman, you need about 6 months of training. For specialized roles, I'd imagine it's longer. But the Russian soldiers have been going through, my understanding, a full amount of training. So things have been kind of moving slow motion, but it doesn't appear that they are like, so if they have to take a choice between attacking um uh by throwing like people who aren't finished training into battle just to make up the numbers, or not attacking, or lowering their plans until the guys are ready, they tend to go with that. As I said, Russia is it's an interesting thing because I believe that the Russians are fighting is basically the entire war. Putin's just letting the general staff run the war, and they're very cautious, deliberate. slow, and they don't really pay any much attention to media stuff. Um, Something that's interesting, and we talked about this last time I did one of these, is Russia has basically a balanced budget, and their economy's growing. So it's not as if sustaining the war is causing like strain to Russia's economy, as far as we can determine. Like they aren't going into they aren't having to go into massive debt to fund it. The debt that Russia is occurring is mostly being held by Russian domestic investors. One second, we'll get back to the drama in a second. So Russian banks announced record profits, the biggest in years. So now, the thing I think people have to keep in mind is that war is like injecting a shot of just cocaine into the arm of the economy. Russia just no sorry any country that goes to a big scale war, especially if they're a country with a lot of manufacturing, the economy just goes crazy because you have tons of money being spent. You have all kinds of people being hired. You have new factories opening, capital goods. If people remember, like the American economy during World War II just went like insane with the sheer amount of spending and stuff that was going on. And Russia has a industrialized economy. They have an educated population, so they're in a position to be able to kind of deal with some of these things. Now, the bank profits, I think, were on a Keynesianism indicated. Well, the problem with Keynesianism isn't necessarily Keynesianism; it's that governments don't actually do Keynesianism. So, like, the idea of Keynesianism is if there's an economic downturn, you spend a bunch of money to stimulate the economy. Then, when things get better, you cut spending and pay off your debt. The problem with how modern governments deal with Keynesianism is they just spend money all the time, regardless of what happens, and there's never like fiscal restraint when the economy gets better. But like stimulus can work, but the other issue is if you do too much stimulus, it causes hyperinflation, which is kind of part of the issue we're seeing at the moment. But that's a side note. So they made a whole bunch of money because a lot of people are buying homes in Russia now. Russia, I think, had a program for discount mortgages. So who knows how much of this is real and how much of this is fake. The point I'm trying to make is it doesn't look like the Russian economy is really hurting. Um, Let me try to find it. There's an article I had that's I don't think I have open. The other interesting thing is you might have noticed that the Russians never really announce things in advance. I don't know if any of you have noticed this, but they just do operations and they don't really say they're going to do them ahead of time, and it just kind of happens, and it's often kind of a surprise. Like you don't really see them just announcing things in like days in advance. They just do things. And I don't know. Like you can say I'm sucking off Russia or something. I don't understand the logic like what America did with the recent Iran thing of saying we're going to be attacking bases in this general vicinity and then waiting like a couple days. It just seems like a really bad idea. I could just be dumb though. Like that's always a possibility that I'm just not big brained enough to get it. Okay. So I think this was it. No, that wasn't it. Okay. So this is from Stoltenberg. This is the head of NATO. He said intensity of hostilities in Ukraine is increasing. We do. Oh no, this is sorry. This is Jungle Joseph Burrell. My bad. This is Joseph Burrell. According to him, Russia's war against Ukraine became a vivid reminder of the critical importance of Okay, let's see here. What does it say? Uh, where is it? I'm trying to see because I think he said something like, the sovereignty, independence, territorial integrity of any country must be indisputable. And we must avoid returning to a world where might is right and where powerful countries can change borders unilaterally. We'll get to that in a minute because basically the EU told Orban, we're going to effect full regime change. We're going to destroy Hungary's current economy. We're going to cause hyperinflation. We're going to cause massive unemployment unless you do what we tell you to do. So they clearly don't. It's part of EU values. Let's see here. But they're still there. The war continues, and to speak, the intensity of hostilities is increasing. We do not see the light at the end of the tunnel. We are closely monitoring the trade between us, between the countries of Central Asia, with them and Russia. We are trying to analyze exactly what mechanisms allow sanctions to be circumvented. We should strengthen our cooperation in this regard. Um, there's a political agreement in favor of use of the. So yeah. So the sanctions aren't working, and I think 2 days after this, he said everything was going great. We need more sanctions, and we need more. Here. Uh, so like this is the thing that you see a lot. You'll have articles like this from Politico. And once again, like Politico is hardly a far right, like anti-Russian, a pro-Russian source, and they'll say like, the sanctions aren't working. We have responsible statecraft. The sanctions aren't working. But then you will go and in the EU Parliament or wherever they will say we need more sanctions on Russia. The sanctions are destroying Russia. It's they're really just kind of flailing around at this point. And I guess like once again, people can say I'm selectively picking from obscure sources like Politico. Um, so that happens. So whether or not Zelensky is going to be replaced or not is kind of anybody's guess at this point in time. We also had this gem from Zelensky. We have a million strong army. A million strong. Why do they need conscription? The total number of personnel of the Ukrainian armed forces is 880,000 people. At the same time, the country's working population is supposedly 30 million citizens. Are there even 30 million people in Ukraine at this point? The working population is. Let me just. Okay. Pain currently. Um, I'm just trying to find what it's at the moment. Uh, okay, so according to current estimates, Ukraine currently has 31 million people within its borders. So, of the 31 million, 30 of the 31 million are working adults who are fit for military service, if I'm understanding this properly. So, I guess there's like no children and no retirees in Ukraine. Also, that would like seem to indicate that all none of the people who fled the country were were military aged males. So I don't know. None of it makes any kind of sense. Nothing. Okay, but the thing is that Russia isn't really an autarkic economy. Russia is has lots of business relationships with different people. um, like the Chinese, lots of African countries, Central Asia, the Middle East, Latin America, a lot of different places in the world. They just don't have business relationships with the EU anymore. My point is that this is just bullshit. That's all I'm trying to say. Also, admit that at the moment there were 7 million Ukrainian citizens living abroad. Okay, that makes even less sense. Okay, so they have that many. Although Russia has a much larger. Okay, so there's that. 100% real, guys. 100%. That is what happened. What's this? Oh, we have the Banderas. What else do we have on the list? So to be honest, I'm not really sure like where we're at the moment with regards to the Zelensky Zelensky thing. Um, we have we have this where we're heading for okay. Oh right. So okay. So there's a choice between two replacements for Zelensky. There is Berdanov. Maybe you can tell me, Konstantin, who the there's I forget his name. There's the head of the Ukrainian infantry. Gravushik, I think. Sersky, yes, that's it. There's Sersky, who's one of the proposed replacements. Yeah, Sersky, proposed replacements for Zelensky. And then there's Budanov, who is, I think he's interior minister. Yeah, he is. Yeah, main director of intelligence of the Ministry of Ukraine. So it's been suggested that he was offered as a potential replacement for Zelensky, but he turned it down. Um, so some people are suggesting that who replaces Zelensky will decide the way forward. If Sersky replaces him, that'll mean that they intend to continue to fight a conventional war for the foreseeable future. There's been speculation, true or not, that if it's Budanov, who is the guy who's behind a lot of like the assassinations and stuff like this. Yeah, here we go. Head of the Servant of the People stated that okay, Budanov is defense minister. Okay, that if they want to switch to an insurgency or something like that, or move towards asymmetric warfare, or just kind of more of that sort of thing, that Budanov would be the logical choice. So, okay, so there we go. We have the those two. So that's kind of where we are at the moment. What is this? What can let's see? The American Conservative. I don't think I read this one, but I have it. What would it mean if Ukraine's top military leader is fired? It depends who he replaces him with. Let me see if I can find that article. So the EU passed $100,000 or 100 million, $50 billion financial times threatens. Okay, here we go. Brussels threatens to hit Hungarian economy if Viktor Orban vetoes Ukraine's aid. What was that we were saying about like sovereignty and might doesn't make right and that kind of thing? So this was leaked, and no points for guessing who leaked this. I mean, it's almost certainly that the European Commission put this out. This is the EU will sabotage Hungary's economy if Budapest blocks fresh aid to Ukraine at a summit this week. Under a confidential plan drawn up by Brussels, that marks a significant escalation in the battle between the EU and its most pro-Russian member state. Is it though? Is it even pro like, or is it just they want to stop the like madness? I don't know. Okay, in a document drawn up by EU officials, Brussels has outlined a strategy to explicitly target Hungary's economic weakness, imperil its currency, and drive a collapse in investor confidence in a bid to hurt jobs and growth. Budapest refuses to lift its veto against the aid to Kiev. I mean, like that. Once again, what Orban wanted was an audit. They wanted the ability to go on and to vote on the money being renewed every year, and they wanted the money that Hungary um, is owed because the EU seized like I think it was like $30 billion. There's a bunch of money that they like grabbed from Hungary that they're holding hostage. Uh, so Europe is telling Viktor Orban is telling Europe enough is enough. You may have a pistol, but we have a bazooka. EU leaders will should publicly vow to permanently shut off all U.S. funding to Budapest with the intention of spooking the markets, precipitating a run on the foreign currency, this surge in the cost of borrowing. So basically, they had this elaborate plan to destroy Russia, to destroy the Hungarian economy, um, because he wanted to. I don't know. U.S. attacks Orban fault. So Viktor Orban, like, so his insane like plan is that he's like Ukraine should just negotiate. Like, guys, this isn't going to work. I think he said like this is the most corrupt country in the world. Why are we giving them $50 billion with no accountability? Um, like we should be negotiating. We should try to like find an end to this. Ukraine's clearly not going to win militarily, and we're just throwing good money after bad, and we're promulgating a war that's leading to like to millions of people dying. Probably. I don't know if it's millions, but it's going to be a lot by then. Um, okay, so he wound up caving on this in part because of a variety of different things. EU with funds from Hungary. Um, the EU must not appease Viktor Orban by unfreezing billions. Commission may be prepared to give Budapest 10 billion euros after leader threatens to derail EU plans to open accession talks with Ukraine. Um, like the Hungarian government moves in recent years to undermine independent institutions as well. The Hungarian government's moves in recent years to undermine independent institutions, as well as concerns about corruption and alleged misuse of European funds, have led Brussels to withhold over $27 billion earmarked for Hungary. So they just they just took the money. Like, let me see how big is Hungary's economy. They literally just stole like They literally just stole like $29 billion from Hungary that they were owed. So the Hungarian economy is oh no, this is dollars. Is a euro about the same as a dollar at the moment? One second. Okay, it's basically the same. So they're withholding funding equivalent of like 10% of Hungary's economy because they can. I think Hungary's actually their economy is doing fairly well at the moment. But it's like they've talked about, yeah, they got a third of the funds unfrozen as a part of result of this. But like there's this thing like EU values. It's like no, I'm saying the entirety. I'm saying the entire 23 billion euros relative to the GDP of Hungary is like 10%. I'm just trying to give it a sort of uh, context to how much money that they just took from them. Let Hungary off the hook. Yeah, because so Orban also like so they were holding like to start a vote to start accession talks with Ukraine because they claimed where was it Ukraine is no Poland is fucked. Poland is beyond fucked. Uh, I'm trying to find where it was. Because maybe if someone could tell me where it was, but I recall like I think it was Erlina Baerbock or it was one of the leaders of the European Union said that Ukraine has completed more than 90% of what's required to join the EU. Um, I'm not sure where it is. If somebody can tell me where that was, I can't remember who it was who said that. But oh, was that maybe that was it? I just don't like. Yes, here we go. Right, it was Ursula von der Crazy. Um, yes, here we go. Yeah, it was Van der Leyen. Said Ukraine has completed well over 90% of the necessary steps to join the EU. That is a that is an interesting it's an interesting point to make. Even if we ignore any of the political things in Ukraine, uh, like isn't the country like a complete wasteland at this point? It's like if Moldova can't join, if Moldova is not able to join the EU because it has problems, how the fuck is Ukraine supposed to join the EU? Like I don't know. And this was so Orban on this one just said, "Look, I'm going to go grab a coffee. This is retarded. You guys vote on Ukraine joining starting ascension talks. I'm going to get a coffee. Fuck off." Is more or less what wound up happening, and they were mad at him over that because he said that Ukraine was not ready to join the EU. I think you have to understand that these people are just flailing around at this point and they're desperate and they don't know what they're going to do, so they're just grabbing at straws and they're just lashing out um, at anybody around them. So since Tusk came to power, he is basically just destroying a lot of the state media. He's just shutting down a lot of media. Polish government takes public TV news channel off the air amid reform drive. So basically, he's conducting mass purges of the media um, in Ukraine. Sorry, in Poland. I think he also had like some kind of guys to like Duda's presidential palace to like grab to arrest people and stuff like that. I don't know. It's just kind of a mess here. I think Poland is like slipping into becoming a much more authoritarian country. Um, so okay, so that stuff happened. So that's kind of where we are at like the overall situation. Russia is currently. Let me see if it can bring up Deep State UA. State. So let's see here. So Russia has basically been making small attacks all across the front line. It's not really it's an offense. It's a minor offensive basically everywhere. Oh, thanks for the mercenaries. We'll talk about the mercenaries in a minute because that happened with France and that was interesting. So yeah, we have a little offensives going on all over the front. It's just kind of slowly pushing. Once again, it seems like the Russian general staff has just decided that um, there's not really any point in just rushing it. Every day they're getting stronger in terms of the quality and quantity of their military, and every day Ukraine is getting weaker. It's something like it's 10 times or more the amount of artillery they have. So, yeah, as you can see, just the Russians are progressing basically along the entire front, just very slowly. We haven't seen any big aero offensives. Ukraine is very heavily turned to just firing like missiles at various targets in Crimea. That seems to be like the new goal is that and to just sink ships that are not always directly important. The other thing is they kept moving around anti-aircraft in order to. Why is Yoda there? I don't know. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about the French mercenaries because this is a fun story. So, um, I think that this was so okay. So at the start of the war, um, okay, so let's see. Okay, so at the start of the war, Russia had said to the U.S. the West, both openly and to the best of my knowledge in private, look, we aren't going to attack like specifically target your dudes. Like we aren't going to specifically go after the advisors and the decision centers and the mercenaries and stuff like that. So long as you tell Ukraine to not like attack civilian targets inside of Russia. And every time that Ukraine attacks a civilian target inside of Russia, we are going to blow one of them up. And that was made clear. And I remember this happened a couple times. And recently we had Ukraine shelling that market in Donetsk. I think it was like 30 people died. Yeah. Um, yeah, Ukraine killed like a whole bunch of people with an artillery attack. They also did like a terror bombing of Belgorod and stuff like that. And so the Russians got pissed off. So the Russians blew up a hotel that was full of French mercenaries. Mercenaries, quote unquote, not volunteer, not people that the French government sent. Mercenaries. So the first news of the strike alleges that they killed approximately 60 fighters and wounded about 20 others. Now, my understanding is it was actually more than this, and basically, so okay, so the let me see if I can kind of get the struggle the thing on this. So Russia blew up a hotel where there was a whole bunch of French foreign fighters staying. Now, the French government immediately stated there are no French mercenaries in Ukraine. This is crazy. That's not the case. Then they said we can't stop our citizens from going to fight in foreign wars, which is raises a whole bunch of other. Let me see if I can find that. France, we can't stop our citizens from fighting. I don't know where it is, but basically, the French government said uh, we can't stop our guys to go and fight in Ukraine. Now, from what I wound up seeing is the day that this attack happened, the French ambassador was basically just like aggressively called into Putin's office. The conversation did not go well, and then Macron just had like a massive hissy fit. Uh, where is it? Oh, it was a year ago. It was from like a month ago. Basically, Macron has just gone full scale. Like EU must support Ukraine even if US withdraws. He's talked about how we need to mass. I think he's talked about a war economy actually. Macron. Yeah, he wants to go to war economy mode because this was after the I believe this was after the stuff happened that killed the mercenaries. So, anyways, so my understanding of what probably happened um, is the French had sent a large number of basically French regular soldiers, probably the French Foreign Legion, who were fighting in Ukraine. And Russia got pissed off that Ukraine kept blowing up, hitting targets within Russia, and so they just decided to blow up the hotel where they knew these guys were staying at. And France got really pissed off because they got called on it, and it's really embarrassing. He's just kind of going um, off on it. But the thing is, you can't just say that you want to make more ammunition. Like you just can't announce that. Um, so now the thing that I find funny, and I think the kind of the best argument over this whole thing is how does Ukraine have shells to fire at like the markets in Donetsk? How do they have missiles to fire at like civilian areas in Belgorod? Like they're out of ammo. Like they're running on fumes at this point in time. And they're wasting what little they have left to just bomb some fucking random market. Like I don't know, it just doesn't make sense. Out of guns, out of ammo, but not out of spite is I think how I put it. Let's see here. Okay, so I think we'll conclude this with a snakening. Let me try to find where the snakening is. Here we go. New Yorker. Ukraine's democracy in darkness. With elections, so we'll just go through this to end this stream off. So we can consider this to be part of the snakening. With elections postponed and no end to the war with Russia in sight, Zelensky and his political allies are becoming like the officials they once promised to root out, entrenched. By Massa Gessen. I don't know if that's a echoey name or not. This is really long. Let me see. I think I have the. I'm sorry. I know some people don't like it when I use a text reader, but I literally can't read something this long. Um, it's just like 20 pages. So let me just fire up Kurzweil, and I'll just give this a second. Oh, there's an audio file at the top narrated by a real person. Okay. All right, then let's start listening to this.
A reporter at large, published in the print issue of The New Yorker with the headline Democracy in Darkness, written by Masha Gessen, read by Julia Whalen. Ukraine's revolution of dignity began, according to legend, with a Facebook post. In the fall of 2013, after President Viktor Yanukovych backed out of a deal that would have deepened the country's relationship with the European Union, the investigative journalist Mustafa Naem wrote a post calling on people to gather in Independence Square in the center of Kiev. After 3 months of continuous protests, Yanukovych fled to Russia. 10 years later, in the late Soviet government building, Naem's suite looks as though it was renovated ambitiously but on a budget, with vertical blinds, plastic paneling, and vinyl knockoffs of the Corbusier
Okay, this
couches.
is boring. Okay, this is. Let me just see where. Just jump ahead a bit. This is fucking boring.
Nazis. It is a commonplace to say that Ukraine is waging a war not only for its survival, but for the future of democracy in Europe and beyond. In the meantime, in Ukraine, democracy is largely suspended. According to the regular order of things, Ukraine should have a presidential election in March. Up until the end of November, a few weeks before the deadline for scheduling the election, Zelensky's office seemed open to having one, but ultimately decided against it. We shouldn't have elections because elections always create disunity. Andriy Zagorodnyuk, a former defense minister who now advises the government, told me. We need to be unified.
Based?
An estimated 4 to 6 million Ukrainians are living under Russian occupation.
6 million.
At least 4 million are living in EU countries, 1 million more are living in Russia, and at least 500,000 are living elsewhere outside of Ukraine. Another 4 million have been internally displaced. These figures include a significant number of people who became adults after the war began and aren't registered to vote. Elections are a public discussion. Oleksandra Romantsova, the executive director of Ukraine's Center for Civil Liberties, which shared the Nobel Peace Prize in 2022, told me. But a third of the population is connected with the military. Another third is displaced. With so many people excluded from the public discussion, what would an election even mean? There is also a more practical problem.
By the way, sorry, just a side note. I don't know if you people have seen, but the amount of seed that's going over Bukele's, I assume it's an election victory. Like the salt from the international media over how like Bukele is the end of democracy, the fact that he has like a 90% approval rating, and he's like the most popular, probably politician in the world, is the end of democracy in El Salvador. And the fact that he is so popular and people want him to be their leader means that it's not democratic. Let's just do a thought experiment for a minute. Who do you think is more popular in their home country, Bukele or Biden? Yeah.
Romantsova said. Elections cause people to congregate, and when Ukrainians congregate, Russia bombs them.
The cope.
The current government was never meant to last. Zelensky, a former comedian who starred in a sitcom about a schoolteacher who guilelessly rides a wave of anti-establishment sentiment into the office of the president, was elected at a moment when Ukrainians wanted someone, perhaps anyone, who was not a career politician. He promised to serve for just one term. During the parliamentary election that followed Zelensky's inauguration in 2019, his Servant of the People party allowed only first...
Oh, this is so boring. They just have so much fucking fluff. Let me just jump ahead a little bit. I'm sorry, I can't take
and to
it.
regulate the work of all media outlets, printing presses, and distribution companies. Zelensky's office created the United News TV Marathon, a round the clock program of war related news and talk shows, supplanting what had been a vibrant and varied television news market. The segments appear on 6 of Ukraine's major channels, and at any given time, all of them are showing the same thing. Despite its name, United Marathon was clearly designed to be a sprint. In the early months of the war, the programming had a sense of urgency, of novelty and shock. Now, even the worst days, when Russia fires a barrage of rockets that kill civilians across the country, are like all the other terrible days, when people are killed in the same way in more or less the same places. There is little to analyze anymore. The one thing all Ukrainians agree on is that we need
Once again, and I bring this up constantly. Who do you think is more popular among the people they rule? Vladimir Putin or Joe Brandon? Who do you think, if tomorrow there was a referendum held, do you want this dude to continue running this country, would win? Do you think Putin would win, or do you think Joe Brandon would win? And yet America is a democracy and Russia isn't.
an end to the marathon, Romansova told me. Other government-controlled media target an international audience. Khalib Husev, a 44-year-old with a shaved head and a trimmed beard, used to run Babel, a highbrow news site. After the invasion, he decided to join the war effort. As part of a 40-person team, he makes social media videos for United 20.
By the way, I've never said that elections in Russia aren't rigged. My point is more that like it does. I don't think it really matters. I think like Putin and United Russia would win regardless. I think they're rigged so that it's overly determined, and they have a large majority.
24 Media, a Zelensky initiative aimed at popularizing the Ukrainian government's messages for the English-speaking world. Putting it harshly, it's propaganda. Husev told me over coffee at a fashionably folksy cafe and gallery called Avant Garden.
You can tell a woman wrote this. Like, who cares? I don't care about the fucking cafe.
Putting it mildly, it's advertising. Our job is to illustrate whatever message the government wants to convey. During the summer, Husev's team promoted Kiev's vision for a victorious post-war Ukraine. But then the counteroffensive fizzled, and we switched.
Once again, Trump is a threat to democracy because a bunch of boomers rioted, and like no one died. I like how people said, somebody said that Alec Baldwin has killed more people than the Jan 6 rioters.
Years, he told me in November. The focus shifted to the woes of importers and exporters, and then to human interest stories about people affected by the war. United 24's YouTube channel has more than 900,000 subscribers.
What percentage? Okay, let me just go. Let us take a trip and see like how many views this YouTube channel actually gets. Okay, United 24.
Welcome.
Okay, they actually get a fair number of views. Although I always like it when you have these like government run media things with oh yeah, the assault brigade Kraken. One second. While we're at it, let's just shit on the CBC. I just like shitting on the CBC. Okay, so the CBC has 1.6 million subscribers. Let's look at the number of views that its videos get. Film fitting in 1.9 thousand views. Inquiry into killings by veteran calls for medical file sharing 1,000 views. Let's see here. Wow. Like they have like what is it, 2 million subs? 1.6 million subs. It's it's rough. It's rough to be CBC. Some of my videos like get more views than this, and I don't have very many subs, and I don't have a high
subscribers.
watch rate
Another
share there.
340,000 follow its Instagram account. My journalistic instincts rebel, Husev told me. But then I think, this work can make a difference. Martial law has effectively stalled and even reversed some of the most important democratic reforms adopted after the Revolution of Dignity: decentralization and the creation of elected governments that control local budgets. In cities and villages where elected mayors have disappeared, resigned, or been driven out, or, as in the case of Chernihiv, a city in northern Ukraine, been accused of misusing funds and suspended by a court, military administrations have stepped in. In Chernihiv, the national parliament ultimately intervened on behalf of the civilian government. The result is a patchwork of governmental authority that varies from region to region and town to town. In November, after months of conflict between military authorities and community councils to control income taxes paid by military personnel, Zelensky signed a law diverting that money into the military budget. Oleksandr Solentay, a political organizer and a former elected official who has fought efforts to replace civilian rule with military administrations, has questioned whether he should continue his work. If we are not fighting for democracy, then what are we fighting for? Solentay told me. At the same time, he went on, Russia is trying to erase us as a nation. So we have to ask whether we can keep talking about democracy when our very survival as a people is in question. Maybe we shouldn't be wasting our time on issues like inclusion or the rights of minorities, on all the things that make us different from one another. Maybe we should just send everyone to the army. For Zelensky, the autumn began badly and ended worse. He and his people have spent most of the war barricaded in the building of the presidential administration on Bankova Street in Kiev. The block is surrounded by military checkpoints. The building itself is mostly dark. Pleated drapes are drawn over stacks of sandbags that cover the windows. In October, a profile in Time portrayed Zelensky as exhausted and increasingly isolated, his administration demoralized by a dawning understanding that the war was unwinnable. 2 days later, The Economist published a column by the commander of Ukraine's armed forces, Valery Zaluzhny, outlining what it would take for Ukraine to break out of a prolonged war: advanced air power, more sophisticated equipment, and a better system for drafting and training fighters. In an accompanying interview, Zaluzhny acknowledged that the expectations that he and the Ukrainian public, and he implied NATO, had for the Ukrainian counteroffensive.
Okay, where is this leak that this leak stuff about Zaluzhny calling Zelensky a homo comedian midget? He posted it today, like on what? Sorry, Derpocracy? Okay, wait a minute. Oh, Derpocracy is a Twitter account, I guess. Okay, let me see here. Okay. I guess it's a Twitter account. That's what I'm going to guess that is. No, okay, so it's not letting me. Okay, give me a second. I just have to sign into Twitter. I'll just do that. We'll just let this play for a minute. Where was I?
Had been inflated. The subhead read, General Valery Zaluzhny admits the war is at a stalemate. Zelensky and Zaluzhny are the most popular men in Ukraine. Surveys show that more people trust the military and Zaluzhny personally than Zelensky. An open disagreement between them could destabilize the government and the country. So the administration closed ranks. When I met with Zagorodnyuk, the government advisor, in November, he told me that The Economist had misinterpreted Zaluzhny's statements. A stalemate is when no one can move, he said. We are always moving back and forth. What we have is equilibrium. Zelensky, when asked about Zaluzhny's grim assessment, had only half-heartedly contradicted his commander, saying that it wasn't a stalemate, and in any case, Ukraine had no choice but to keep fighting. If we give away a third of our country, nothing will end. In September, Zelensky had traveled to Washington.
No, sorry, it's not letting me, for whatever reason, it's not letting me sign into Twitter on Brave. So I'll just let this play for a second. I'll see if I can
Where,
get it.
earlier in the war, he had received a hero's welcome. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi had compared him to Winston Churchill, and Congress had approved nearly $45 billion in aid. This time, Zelensky was not invited to speak before Congress, where additional funding for Ukraine had stalled. In November, Zelensky's chief of staff, Andriy Yermak, went to Washington, but he too returned empty-handed. Outside the administration, there was some annoyance. What is he doing in Washington? Oleh Rybachuk, a politician who once held Yermak's job, asked. Why are we sending some clerk instead of the foreign minister? Meanwhile, even the aid that the United States and other Western countries had previously promised often arrived late or not at all, and some of the military equipment that had been delivered was proving to have a short shelf life. It was old, manufactured before Zelensky was born. When it did arrive in working condition, it would frequently prove unreliable. It's like if you take a 50-year-old car in pristine condition out of the garage and start using it on your long daily commute. Serhiy Leshenko, an advisor to the administration, told me.
Okay, here we go. For whatever reason, it's not letting me load Twitter on Brave. I don't know why. If like they just banned Brave on Twitter or something like that, but it's pretty fucking annoying. Log in. Nope, I'm not able to. Check Discord general. Okay, here we go. Excerpts from telephone conversations with Zelensky about Zelensky. Let's get him, call Zelensky homo joker. Let's get him in his blue wagon and fuck off. Fuck him. I don't want to talk to him now. He's high again. Have you seen this face? He's a retard. The whole country is laughing. Short ass Brat, Stuart Little Hobo, Pimple, Frodo, 1.5 meters, Small Busan Agent, Pussy. Let's see, what the other one we have? The return is attention. Stuart Little. Oh.
Something will crack. Leshenko had just returned.
Let's see here. I'm sorry, I can't even get through this. This is just so fucking boring. Like, why is this an hour long? Like, it's just all fluff and like talking about like the person's feelings and things like that. Um, I wanted to share just another like part of the musical interlude. Um, Something from our good friend Dr. Eli David, the most loving, pleasant man on Twitter. He's a man I enjoy following a lot. So he put he posted this with no irony, or maybe it was with irony and it's just a power move because he knows he can just do whatever he wants. This was this came out. Uh, this is what Dr. Eli David put out. Palestinians are rats. Um, yeah, that's. It's not as if like another government made a film that compared another Semitic people to rats. Okay, there's a funny part at the end of this. Okay, let's see what the funny part is at the end of this because it's not very funny so far. Um, let's see here. 72%, but okay. I don't know. Okay. All the people I spoke with this fall and winter in Ukraine, politicians, government officials, civil activists, journalists, a book publisher, a movie publisher, and several soldiers said they no longer thought about the end of the war. They could not imagine it. Democracy is, after all, the belief that the world can be better. Ukrainians are not surrendering. I've given up my freedom so I can fight for my freedom. And this is true of most everyone I know. That is that is amazing. There's all this stuff about gay shit which I just honestly don't want to talk about. So let me see here. Was there any other what was this? No, that was the Million Man Army. Twitter's just blocking me for some reason. It's annoying because I was able to use Twitter on Brave the other day. So just to maybe explain how I have it set up is Brave is the browser I use for streaming, and I don't use it for really anything else. So that means that like just random doc shit doesn't pop up because that's kind of an issue sometimes where it'll just autocomplete or like things like that'll happen. So I just use it for that reason. What is this? Is that the Million Man thing? Oh no, that was another one I talked about. That was one I talked about a week or two ago. That was back when Russia completely blew out Britain by blocking off their access to fish and chips. There's Spring Offensive 2. Uh, okay, here we go. All right. Thank you, Constantine. I appreciate it. Here we go. While the war creates new social and economic divisions, the army erases them. I spent much of the war among people I couldn't have imagined being in a room together in peacetime, Kobson told me. An Azari man, an Armenian, a Jew, an anti Semite, a small time criminal, and a major entrepreneur. Why are there Azeris, Armenians, and Jews fighting in the Ukrainian army? All of them managed to avoid conflict at first because we had found a common higher goal, and then because we formed connections, and now we are invested in accepting one another as we are. A guy might be going on about some anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, but he is a member of the family. Tomorrow you go into battle, and you have no one but each other. Out of the 100-person company, the rest remain active. I don't really get what you're referring to. So, anyways, I think that about covers it. I hope people enjoyed it. We'll see how the drama plays out. I'm not going to talk about the U.S. strikes in the Middle East because I haven't had time to really look at it. And I want to have at least some idea what's going on before I start talking about it. But I hope people enjoyed this show. Have a good weekend. God bless you all.